Welcome to this Philippines tourism update. Philippine Airlines files for bankruptcy. The domestic travel situation is improving, and who can enter the Philippines right now? We will discuss it all in this video. I know that all of us have been undergoing drastic changes in our lives. This has been one of the most difficult, most devastating, most life-changing periods that most of us have experienced in our lifetime. And I think this is going to get better. And why I'm saying this is because we can see countries go from being closed to being open, or to opening a little bit more. But sometimes they also close again. However, I do believe the overall situation is improving, and I think there is a very high chance we're going to have our lives back soon. Things certainly have normalized in Europe, and hopefully it will stay like this. But what do I know? I'm not the Pope. Philippine Airlines filed for bankruptcy. And they filed for bankruptcy not in the Philippines, but in the United States to receive maximum protection. No doubt, the pandemic had a major impact on international travel. I mean, Philippine Airlines is not the only airline that filed for bankruptcy over the past 18 months. In fact, AeroMexico and Latam Airlines also filed for bankruptcy in the United States. More and more airlines filed for protection in the United States to limit potential loss. Philippine Airlines also seeks to raise funds from shareholders to secure the future of the airline. I mean, what the airline wants, just as much as we want it, is to continue flights whenever travel restrictions are being lifted. I'm talking international travel restrictions. So to avoid laying off staff and reducing its fleet, Philippine Airlines really needs financial support during this time of hardship. I mean, many airlines, not just in Southeast Asia, but also in Latin America, see 80 to 90% fewer flights when compared to 2019. Many people are also waiting for updates on who can enter the Philippines right now. As we know, the Philippines has suspended its visa-free policy, which allowed nationals from over 90 countries to enter the Philippines without the need of a visa. Since the visa-free policy has been suspended, tens of thousands of foreign nationals are locked out of the Philippines. Many people who are currently locked out of the Philippines, they're waiting in their home country, but they're waiting to get back to the Philippines to spend time with their Filipino girlfriends. I really feel for these people. There's nothing worse than being separated from your loved one. The government said once the whole situation improved, and it needs to improve a lot more than what it already has, they will consider opening up their borders and allowing international tourists to enter the Philippines for tourism purposes again. I know that we're not quite at this point yet, so it's going to be a little bit frustrating for a little bit longer for all the ones who cannot enter the Philippines. As of right now, only long-term pass holders, aka residents of the Philippines, can enter the country, and of course, spouses of Filipino citizens. So if you're married to a Filipino, you're definitely allowed to enter the country even during this current situation. Children of Filipino citizens are also allowed to enter. I've also heard some positive news about people who enter the Philippines with a work permit. The people who entered the Philippines over the past months were able to do so through the Travel Ban Exemption, the TBE. So you can really only get into the Philippines if you get the travel ban exemption approved. Meaning you can't really apply for anything right now and get it approved. It doesn't work like that. You have to get the travel ban exemption first. And how you get it is through the embassy in your country. Once the travel ban exemption is approved, you can go to the Philippines and stay, depending on how long it's valid for, it's usually, I think, 30 to 60 days. You can go to the Philippines, stay there for 30 to 60 days, and then, once you're in the Philippines, you can apply for a long-term visa, assuming you meet the qualifications. If you manage to acquire a travel ban exemption, visa, or if you happen to have a long-term visa already, then you can enter the Philippines if you quarantine in the Philippines at your own expense. How it works is that you need to quarantine at a government-approved facility for 10 days. And another 4 days of home quarantine is required as well. And remember that you cannot leave your hotel room while you are in a government-approved quarantine facility. Meaning, for the period of 10 days, you have to stay in your room, you cannot leave your room. Food will be brought to your room, obviously at your own expense, just as the quarantine is going to be at your own expense. Before the 10 days are up, you will be tested, and if the test happens to be negative, you're going to go home, wherever home is for you, and quarantine for the 4 remaining days. However, there are exceptions. Depending on your country of origin and vaccination status, you may be able to quarantine for fewer days than the average person. But before you come to the Philippines, a negative PCR test and vaccination may be required in order for you to be allowed to enter the country. I also wanted to talk with you about the current domestic travel situation. I think that's where a lot of people get excited, because if you happen to be in the Philippines and you were locked in for the past months because the Philippines was going through an extended period of lockdowns, then you can finally take a deep breath. I think what the country seems to be going through right now is the end of lockdowns and the reopening of most businesses. A truly exciting time for everyone who is in the Philippines and who misses their old life. A friend of mine reported to me that most businesses in Cebu are open. He went out to eat at an outdoor restaurant. His girlfriend was asked for vaccination proof, but the waitress did not ask him. The country prioritizes vaccinations in high-risk areas, such as Manila, Metro Manila, and Cebu City. Similar to many other Southeast Asian countries like Thailand and Malaysia, the Philippines aims to vaccinate over 90% of its population. When do you think the Philippines is going to open its borders to international tourists? Are you in the Philippines right now? If so, what is it like living in the Philippines at this time? Leave a comment below and let us know. Make sure to subscribe and turn on alerts to receive a notification when I upload the next video on digital nomad locations, visas, travel updates, and anything that you need in order to travel internationally. Before I let you go, I have 2 more recommendations for you. 1. I shot a video on the cheapest and safest countries to live in the world. If you want to watch this video, then click on the link that appears right here. 2. I shot another video on countries without entry restrictions. If you want to check this video out, you can do so by clicking right here. Thank you for watching.